What would it feel like to be truly, deeply happy, regardless of your circumstances? Did you know that happiness is a choice and not a result? That you can create your life on purpose? Join us now to learn more. This is the Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. And here's your host, mindset coach, and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. And today we are going to be talking about one of our heavier subjects. Normally we talk about stuff that's really upbeat and light and fun, but there are some things that have to happen sometimes to help us get there. And this is one of them. So today's show is called Healing, Getting to the Root. And we are going to be talking about how to identify whatever the problem may be, how to dig down to it, get that root and get it out of there so that we can stop being triggered and having that emotional reaction from an upheaval that happened before. It's a thing. So on Time to Rise and Thrive, we talk about your subliminal soundtrack. That's my thing. That's my shtick. Your subliminal soundtrack, how to get it working for you rather than against you. We also talk about how to recognize and embrace your unique beauty, your gift, your contribution to the world. So here we go. Today, we're going to be digging at some of this stuff. And I'm going to tell you, it's a good thing to do. It's a wonderful thing to experience, but it can also be kind of painful and tricky. So we're going to go through the show. In our third segment, as usual, we're going to have some steps, some tips, some ideas that will help you to do this. So I would highly, highly recommend that if you're in this space of healing and you're stuck in some way, that you grab yourself a pen and paper and get ready, because we're going to dig into this subject pretty deep today. So have you ever been going through a healing process, thought that you were done? It's happened to me so many times, and then found yourself being triggered by something. Has that ever happened to you? It's not fun. And I know I've got all kinds of friends. We talk about this woo-woo stuff. We talk about the emotional healing. We talk about all of that kind of stuff. And there have been times when I've gotten incredibly frustrated. I'm like, oh my God, I think I've already done this. I feel like I've already done this. What is going on? Why am I now being triggered by this thing all over again? So here's the thing. We can dig at it. We can play around with it. We can start a healing process on some specific thing. And if we don't complete the process, or if we're not ready to deal with all of it, it can come back again and again and again. The trick as you're doing this is to not be hard on yourself, to not beat yourself up for not having accomplished it, and to allow yourself the space to do what you need to do in order to deal with it once and for all. So before we get into all of that, our subliminal soundtrack, just so you understand what it is that I'm talking about when I say that, it's a loop of messages that plays in the back of our minds all day, every day. It is made up of little bits of information that we picked up throughout the course of our lives. So every single relationship, every single lesson, every conversation, every single experience has given you little bits of information that you gathered together and stored back there on your subliminal soundtrack. We use that information to create our belief systems about ourselves, about what's possible, about what it means, what anything means. What does it mean to love or be loved? What does it mean to have money or not have money? What does it mean to be anything, to be a parent, to be an employee, to be a lover? What does it mean? That is all formed based on this information that we are carrying around on our subliminal soundtrack. It's very important for us to get clear on that, because it influences every single part of our lives. It influences what we will allow into our lives, what we will search for. We create the circumstances in our lives to support the belief systems that we have. And here's the good news. What we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. Now, what that tells us is that we can change things. We can change these things. We can decide that something is no longer true for us. Maybe it was for a while, maybe it no longer is now. Maybe it's something that a loved one imparted on us when we were so young that we didn't have any frame of reference or any way of processing. So even, excuse me, down to things like we talked about, what does it mean to have money or not have money? If you consider two different circumstances with this, if you consider a person who was born into wealth, comparatively speaking to a person who was born into poverty, they may have had, and we're going to just for ease in this particular conversation, we're going to say that they have exactly the same circumstances with the exception of money. They have exactly the same sorts of parents and people in their lives. They have exactly the same, location, all of those things. They have exactly the same circumstances with the exception of their finances. So where this is going to be different for them is our person who is born into wealth is going to automatically have a certain mindset that is passed on to them from the people in their lives. So maybe they believe that money is easy to come by. Maybe they believe that money is a tool that we use to create more money by investing or by having a business. Maybe they believe that money is always available and they can have whatever experiences they might like to have. They've never had to do without. They've always had the things that they need. By comparison, our friend that was born into poverty maybe hasn't had the things that they needed as they were growing up. Their parents may have a completely different way of being with money. A lack of ease is very likely to be happening in that financial circumstance. So we hear things like, oh, that's too expensive. Oh, we can't afford those things. We hear things like that's not available to you. It's not available to you because we don't have the resource. Okay. So in one mindset, the money is a resource. In the other mindset, the money is a thing that prevents us from coming to that place. One of the things that came up for me last week, I think when I was doing the show, pardon me, I've got a tickle today, was this idea of like, we can both of these people can see the exact same thing. It's over there. Okay. It's over there. It's on the other side of a chasm. Now, if you have the mindset that I see it, I can get to it, then you are going to automatically be looking for ways to get across that chasm, where the person who is in the position where they feel like it's not available, it's not possible, it is out of my reach, it is out of the realm of my possibilities, they're probably either going to stand there looking at it for a long time and feeling sad, or they're going to see it and they're going to get moving in a different direction, because why would I waste my time going after something that isn't available to me? Now, all of the resources are available to each of those people. All of the people are available to each of those people that might be able to help build that bridge across the chasm. All of the resources that they need are there. Do you see what I'm saying? So one person gets busy looking for the things that will help them get there. The other person throws their hands up in the air because they don't believe it's possible. So that is your subliminal soundtrack in action, either way, either side of that. So if you're somebody who is seeing that thing and thinking, man, I really, really would like it. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's a home in a particular neighborhood. Maybe it's a car. Maybe it's a type of love, a type of relationship. If you are somebody who is looking at it and thinking it's out of your reach, I have some wonderful news for you. Shift your mindset and maybe it is. Isn't that exciting? So that's what we're working with when we're talking about this subliminal soundtrack, because again, we will create the circumstances in our lives to support our belief system. So if I believe that I can get to that thing that I want, then I will create the circumstances that help me get there. If I believe that it's out of my reach, then I create the circumstances that continue to tell me that it's out of my reach. Okay. So that's your subliminal soundtrack in a nutshell. Now, how this is going to relate to this healing process. If you believe the pain is something to be avoided, and that it is a perfectly natural thing. It's a perfectly natural thing for us to avoid pain. But as long as you push it away, and when you refuse to deal with it, you will continue to have those problems. You will continue to have those triggers that happen. You will continue to invest in that upheaval that may have happened 30, 40, 50 years ago that you are still connected to because you have not released it. Now, in contrast, if you choose to face things head on, if you choose to say, I will figure this out, I'll figure out how to get to that thing that I want. If you are somebody with that kind of a mindset and you do what is required to release the pain, the energy, the thing that you have invested and attached yourself to, and whatever that circumstance may be, if you do that, then you will free yourself from those triggers. You will free yourself from the emotional upheaval of whatever that circumstance was. So one of the things that's really important for me to say, because I talk with all kinds of other coaches, I talk with other people who have read books or written books, or all kinds of different people. And there are often differences in our perspective on things. Again, subliminal soundtrack helps you to form your perspective, to help you have a perception of something in a certain way. So it is very important to recognize that there are some people that you're going to hear what they say and it's going to have the ring of truth and you are going to get it right now. There are other people that you're going to go, that doesn't feel true to me. That doesn't feel right to me. When you are in the position where it doesn't feel, then drop it. Don't invest in that belief system. Invest in the belief system where there's a ring of truth and where you feel good, you feel positive, you feel like this is the thing that is going to help me get that next step in that bridge across the chasm. Okay. When you have that feeling of this is the thing I need, follow it. So if I ever say something that you don't agree with or that doesn't ring true for you, drop it. Take whatever you can from this thing, get as much as you can from whatever we talk about, and leave the rest behind. All right. It's a thing. You are allowed to pick the stuff out. That is when we start to program that subliminal soundtrack, when we get conscious and choosy about the thoughts and the beliefs that we are going to carry. We actually start to put ourselves into a much more positive soundtrack and a much more positive way of being in whatever our circumstances are. So we're going to talk really quickly. I'm getting the notification that we have to go to break soon. So we're going to talk really quickly about this thing. We are then going to go to break. And again, grab your pen and paper, because as we go through the show, I am sure that there are going to be at least a few little nuggets that you're going to want to pick up. So what is this thing? Emotional triggers. You have not healed something when you run up against a circumstance that's similar to that and it brings it up again. That's your trigger, right? So we know that we haven't completed our healing when we are still triggered by the same circumstances. Healing is a process. You can't rush it. And you have to be willing to allow yourself to go through that process. It's also important to say that sometimes we can't go all the way deep on this thing. Sometimes we are only able to process so much at a time. We're only able to heal this thing to this degree right now. And that is absolutely okay. There's a saying that was coming up for me as I was getting ready to do the show this morning. And it's that as a student? No, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Okay. It's the same idea. If we are not emotionally or mentally or spiritually in a place where we can actually process this thing, like in its entirety, then we'll come back to it. And that is where this becomes kind of frustrating, but stick with us. We're going to head to our first break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about what keeps us stuck. How do we recognize that we're still in this place And then in the third segment is when we're going to get to the really good stuff. So you're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about digging down to the root of things and actually going through the healing process so that we can release ourselves from the emotional upheaval and the triggers of things that have happened before in our lives. So stick with us for just a minute. We will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about going through our healing process, getting down to the root of things, identifying them, and actually dealing with them so that we can release ourselves from the emotional upheaval and the triggers that they can cause. So Christine actually sent a message on the break. She says, recently I've had such a big aha with where I'm no longer being triggered, but can see others close to me are grateful to be on the other side of much of it. It is such a thing. And this is one of the beautiful things is once you start to actually see these things with your own eyes, when you see it in yourself, it's easy to start to recognize in someone else. And it can also allow us to have a little bit more patience or compassion or something like that for the other person, because we can see what's happening, right? We know what's happening. And it's wonderful when you get beyond that. It's something that, and you don't know always. You really don't know always until it happens again. And then you can go, oh man. And if you are in a position where you see this in yourself, celebrate it. Please celebrate it. This is huge growth, huge learning. We are talking about some of the really more difficult stuff that happens right now. So if you're in a position where you, for example, I'm trying to think of one that happened to me recently. Somebody says something about something, whatever, right? And you just go, oh, okay. And then you realize, you go, wait a minute, a month or two ago or a year ago or 5 years ago, that would have sent me into a tailspin. That thing where that person said whatever they said about me would have hurt me so badly. It would have completely blown up my day. And now I go, okay, you're allowed to have your opinion. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And that's one of the really important things too. This healing process is very much a part of something that I call building a bulletproof belief in yourself. Bulletproof belief. I know who I am. I know my good. I know my bad. I know my flaws. I know my everything. I know who I am. And I own it. And I incorporate all of that stuff into who I be. That is your bulletproof belief in yourself. So when somebody pops off and says something unkind, you go, all right. And you get on with your day. You get on with your life. You move forward, because what does it matter? It doesn't matter. That's where the trigger comes from. Okay. The trigger comes from the importance, the energy that we have given to a certain thing. So as long as we're still being triggered, that thing is not completely healed. So I want to talk about this thing from like what keeps us stuck in this place. Very easily for me, there is a spot in my garden out front. There's a spot in my garden that grows really long grass. And every spring, I have to go out and dig up this part of the garden and do my very best to get all of those roots, because here's what happens. Those roots sort of, they travel and they intertwine with other plants. They intertwine into the root systems of the other plants, and they start to grow up. So I've got a big hosta out there, and you'll see the grass coming through. I can never get it all. I can never get it all. And that's why it keeps coming back every year. All right. So that's what happens. It's like these weeds that are they have the space to grow. So think about that from a place of, emotionally, these things that are still triggering us. It's because that it's a weed that we haven't quite dug up yet. Okay. That is an important thing. So we pull it up, it keeps coming back. It gets all wrapped around and intertwined with all of the other plants in that section of the garden. So it's going to keep doing that, because there's no way that I can pull it all up. Do you see what I mean? I'd probably have to pull the entire garden out and, replace all of the dirt and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to do that. So consider this as part of the healing process. We have to dig it up and do our best to get everything, but we may not be able to get the whole thing. And if you can't get the whole thing, then be prepared that you're going to have to go back in and dig at it a little bit again. And that is okay. Trying to avoid the pain or avoid this process is one of the things that keeps us stuck. Now, I know that there are a couple of circumstances in my life where this was a real thing for me. When my sister was killed in a car accident a few years ago, I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with it. And it hurt so deeply that whenever I thought about it, it just emotionally, it kind of brought me to my knees. So I did my very best to not think about this thing. And as long as I didn't think about this thing, then I could keep going and get on with my day. But the moment something happened that reminded me of that circumstance, it would level me every day. Do you see what I'm saying? Every time I thought about something to do with her, because I was avoiding the pain. I was avoiding the process that I needed to go through to come to a place of allowance and acceptance and moving on with my life. It's not an easy thing to do. And this is why we avoid it. It's that, like, you don't put your finger on a hot burner because you're going to burn yourself, right? You don't do certain things because you know that they're going to hurt. And they will, as long as you don't do the work that you need to do. So there's no timeline. And that was one of the things that I found very difficult. I was like, okay, somebody just tell me when the pain is going to stop. Somebody just tell me, and I wanted someone to give me a date. Okay, it's going to take you 6 months. It's going to take you 2 years. It's going to take you 3.5 weeks, whatever it is. It's going to take you this long to work through this, Jackie. And then you're going to be past it and you're going to be able to get on with life. The truth of the matter is there is absolutely no timeline. And as long as you are avoiding it, you are extending that time period. The people that we see, and I'm sure you must know somebody, because I know many of these people in my life, the people who are still sort of stuck in that circumstance, somebody's spouse died and they're still grieving 20 years later. Somebody's partner left for another person, and 5 years later, they're still mired in the ick of all of that. As long as we make that loss, whatever that loss is, important, as long as we make that part of our identity. So, the widow or whatever it is. If we make that part of our identity, then we will continue to roll around in that thing. It becomes important. It becomes important. But the thing of it is when we heal it, then we can get on with our lives. I'm going to say something really harsh right now, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. If you want to waste the rest of your life, keep rolling around in your ships. That's the truth. I'm sorry. It's very harsh, but it is absolutely the truth. If you want to get on and have some semblance, every single day that we have on this planet is a gift. Every single day that I wake up, even if I feel like crap, even if my body hurts, even if I've gone through something painful, every single day I have is a gift that my sister didn't get. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want to waste that. I don't want to waste that time. I don't want to waste my energy rolling around in stuff that I can't change. So when I talk about this healing process, it's because I've done it. When I talk about how to do it, it's because I've had to do it. And I've helped other people this exact same way. What I share with you on the show is what I do in my work, what I've done in my own life. What I've learned from those things, I'm hoping will help shorten your learning curve and get you to that place maybe a little bit faster, so that maybe you've got an extra 5 days that you didn't waste rolling around, or 6 months or 2 years, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that is why this stuff is so very, very important. You have a gift every single morning that you open your eyes. You have a gift. Are you going to waste it feeling badly about something you can't change? Or are you going to get on about the business of building that bridge to that thing that you want in your life? What do you want? What do you choose? What do you choose? The people that I work with are the ones that want to get to that thing. And I am one of the people that helps them to build that bridge. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, we need help sometimes. And if you need help, go get it. Ask for it. There are so many people out there that do the same type of work. Find a voice, find a method. You know, like I said, take what works, leave the rest behind. Find somebody that you can identify, that you feel that, oh yes, this is the thing that's going to help me. Okay, find that person. Find that method, find that book, find that podcast, find that whatever, and start to get busy living again. It is your choice. It's your choice whether to roll around in that pain or move forward. And I'm sorry, now I'm getting into preacher mode. It's crazy. So one of the things with this thing that I want to briefly touch on before we head to our next break is this idea that it comes in phases. This part was very frustrating for me because, again, I'd be like, oh, I thought I was done this thing. Man, I didn't think I had to go through this again. I don't want to think about that circumstance anymore, blah, blah, right? Have you ever been there? I'm betting that most of us that are at a certain age are probably. Christine, I'm curious. I'm going to ask you to just comment. Have you ever been there? That thing where you're like, oh, yeah, I got this. I'm good. I don't even have to think about this anymore. And then all of a sudden, there it is again. All of a sudden, there it is again. So what she says, fuck yes. Awesome. So what we need to understand is that sometimes there are layers. And like I said, sometimes we are not in a position where we could emotionally or spiritually or physically take on a certain part of this. I really believe that's true. I really believe that when it comes in waves or it comes in phases like this, it's because we're only able to process so much at a time. Okay. So if it comes in phases, if it comes in layers, let yourself have some space. Do not beat up on yourself. Ask for help if you need it. These are all things that are so important. I had one thing came up just over Christmas holidays or beginning of January, and it was massive. This was something that went back to early childhood. And remember, I talked about those weeds Because here's what happens. Your belief systems are just like the roots of those weeds, and they will entangle around everything in your life, your relationships, your money flows, your whatever. And I'm not always talking about romantic relationship, because you have relationships with every person and every being in your world, right? So maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your child or your parent or your sibling or your friend or workmate, whatever it is. We have relationships. So when these belief systems are all sort of being affected by something unhealthy, by something that is not positive or does not help us move forward, that's when things can get really, really rocky. This thing, I swear it was one of the hardest ones that I've ever faced. And that is because I've already done a lot of my own work. So I was finally ready to address this really deep thing and take my time with it. And we are going to talk in our next segment about what you need to do in order to actually go through this healing process. So we're going to head to our next break now. You're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Today, we're talking about getting down to the root so that we can truly heal and release ourselves from those emotional upheavals and triggers that are caused by circumstances that have already happened, and there's nothing we can do about them anymore. So stick with us for a minute, grab that pen and paper, and we will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about this healing thing so that we can actually get down to the root and get to it so that we can release it. And when we release it, we no longer are triggered by similar circumstances. We let go of that emotional upheaval that may have happened in the case that I just mentioned to you, happened when I was a very young child, like probably under 2. Do you see what I'm saying? Some of this stuff back here, it goes back a long, long time. So just before we get into the steps here, I just want to share with you a few things that are going on in my world. I have had such an aha moment, such an epiphany as I've been working on some stuff in the background here. And what I've come to understand is that one of my real gifts is talking about let's build that bridge to get over to that thing that may not seem like it's available right now, but we can see it. Oh, we can see it. So there's going to be a new program launching in the very near future. It's called Believe All Things Are Possible. It's going to be a 12-month program. There's going to be different levels of support and therefore different price points. So it should appeal to just about anybody, where I think the first price point works out to be like $50 a month. And then it goes up from there, depending on what you might like to be involved with. There will be a 60 to 90-minute masterclass every single month based on this process of building on last month's learning. The second level will also include a mastermind class. So we will sit back and we will actually talk about this thing. Yes. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of information coming out with that in the very near future. There will be a webinar coming up probably mid-February. So keep your eyes and ears open. If you would like to find more information about that, you can find me on Facebook, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can also go to jackiemott.com and send me an email or a message through the website. And then I will know that you're interested so that I can get that in. There's also a free e-guide ebook thing that I wrote called 5 Steps to Create a Mindset Wired for Success. Sign up for that. It will give you these steps, these 5 steps that we use in this resetting your subliminal soundtrack process. It'll give you the 5 steps. It'll give you some ideas of what to do with that information. It will also get you onto the list. So when I send out that newsletter that has the date and time for the free webinar, you will get that information right in your email box. Okay, so now let's get to it. So this thing about the healing process, there are 5 steps that I've come to as I've been thinking about this morning. There might be a little bit more to it, but for the purposes of the show, we're going to try to make it quick because I've only got a few minutes to go through it. So the first step is to identify what the problem is. So in order to do that, what happens for me and what I walk through with my clients is it's this process of, okay, what is this thing? What is it about whatever's happening right now that is causing me to feel triggered? What is this thing? What is it trying to show me? So usually the stuff that I talk about with these steps and tips is stuff where I want you to get really quiet, because we can get that monkey chatter thing going in our brain. And when we got the monkey chatter thing going, we can't hear our own voice. So we need to get to that place where we're quiet enough and we start to ask these questions. What is this thing and what is it trying to show me? That's step 1. Now, step 2 is to give yourself that space to identify it, but also to start to see those roots. Where did it come from? Where is it tying me up? Where is it going into the root systems of other things and showing up? So give yourself the time and space that you need. Allow it to come to the surface. It can be painful. Heads up, it can be painful. Sometimes we need to shed some tears. Sometimes we need to face that we are uncomfortable, that we were deeply hurt. We need to face whatever that thing is. Allow it to come to the surface, because when we are resisting, just like we talked about a few minutes ago, when we're resisting, we are actually extending the healing process. Okay. It's almost like, if you think about it from a standpoint of like recuperating after surgery or something, the doctor says to you, okay, so I don't want you to lift anything heavy for 3 weeks. Don't lift anything heavy for 3 weeks. There's a reason. There's a reason they tell you that, because if you start lifting heavy stuff before your body is, fully healed and able to do that again, you can actually take yourself back to massive damage, right? So it's that same thing. As long as we are doing the thing or not doing the thing that we need to do, So as long as we're doing the thing that we shouldn't do, like lifting the heavy thing, or not doing the allowing ourselves to sit and sort of steep in this thing long enough to really get a good idea of what it is and where it came from, then we are extending that recuperation process. Okay. So this is where somebody like me might come in as help. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a coach. It could be a friend. It could be a loved one. It could be maybe you need a therapist. It could be your doctor. It could be any number of different people. But when you need help, it is very important for you to reach out and ask for it. Step 3 is to speak it. Now, this is where there are different schools of thought. In my humble opinion, when we speak something, we take away its power. So I think about this in terms of like the boogeyman in the closet. Think about the boogeyman in the closet, right? The power comes from it being hidden. The power comes from us being afraid to look at it, right? But when you throw open the drapes and you throw open the closet door, the boogeyman goes poof because they can't be in the light. They can't survive in the light of day. So when we speak something, it's like doing that. It's like opening up that door. And now when we get it out, sometimes it's so much scarier in our head than it is when we actually look at it. So speak it. What is this thing that is hanging you up? What is this thing that is causing you to still be triggered by something that happened? What is this thing? Speak it. Bring it out into the light. Now, this one's uncomfortable, okay? Warning. Ask yourself this. What am I getting out of holding on to this? What do I get from holding on to this thing? It could be, we talked about maybe a widow, right? 20 years after the spouse is gone, there's still a widow. They still identify from that same place. So what are they getting out of that? It's hard to say. Maybe they're getting attention from, yeah, maybe it's just they're getting attention from people because people go, oh my goodness, Doris lost her spouse and now she's never been able to get past it, right? So people give a little bit more attention maybe, or who knows what that is, but what are you getting out of it? What are you getting out of it? What are you able to not have to do as long as you hold on to this? So in the case of me as a 17-year-old mom, long time ago, what did I get out of? Well, what did I get out of holding on to the poverty mindset? I didn't really have to do too much today. Didn't have to. I could identify the circumstances that were a wonderful excuse to hold me back from actually stepping into and achieving things in my life, couldn't I? That's my truth. Uncomfortable, sure. Does it make me feel good? Not so much. But it does make me feel good that I dealt with it and now I'm on the other side of it. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So now we're at number 5. Release it. Release it. Okay. Now this can be any number of different things, and maybe it's a different combination depending on what it is that you're going through. So maybe you need to cry. Maybe you need to talk about it. Maybe you need to just get it out of your system. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes we keep that stuff tied up inside. And again, it looks different on the inside. It feels different on the inside, that when we see it out in the light, it looks completely different on the inside. So we need to get it out, write about it, talk about it, scream, cry, ask for help, find somebody out there that is able to help you challenge your perspective on things, challenge your mindset, or shift things around. Find somebody that's able to help you look for those resources. Because here's the thing, if no one knows that you need something, then nobody can give it to you. If you need support, if you need a thing, if you need whatever it is, if you don't ever voice your needs, how is it ever going to come to you? How are you ever going to get the thing that you need if you don't express it. This is where this becomes a really wonderful thing. Okay. Not easy, but a really wonderful thing, because here's what happens when we start to speak our needs out into the world. People show up. When you are, doing this, I'm an island. I don't need anyone's help. I can do it all myself. Nobody's going to step up, right? And you don't get the opportunity. You don't get the opportunity to be supported by somebody who may love you deeply and want nothing but good things. If they don't know that you need something, how can they help you? Also, the side benefit to this is, how great does it feel when you're able to help someone you love in whatever way? Like, I mean, with anything, this could be like allowing them the space to be so that they can heal. It could be giving them a resource. Maybe they need something physical. Maybe they need money. Maybe they need whatever it is. When you are in a position to do that for someone that you care about, you get this wonderful, warm feeling, and you know that you're of value. You know that you are being a contribution to your person. So as long as you stay in that space of, I'm an island, I can do it all by myself, I don't need anybody, then we are preventing our loved ones from making a contribution to us and seeing themselves as being valued and important. It's really weird, isn't it? It's really weird how this stuff shows up. So we have to head to our last break. You are with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. And today we are talking about digging up the roots and getting down to the healing process so that we can release things that are still causing emotional upheaval and causing us to be triggered. So stick with us for just a minute. We'll be back and we will wrap up this conversation right after this.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about digging down to the root of things so that we can actually heal them and release ourselves from the triggers and the emotional upheavals created by things that have happened to us. So we are now in our final segment. We've got to wrap up this conversation. We've only got a few minutes left here. So what I really feel is important for us to get a handle on is that when we don't allow the healing to take place, we will continue to carry whatever it is with us. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to just sort of picture like a backpack or a sack or something like that you're carrying into your life, especially in circumstances where there's been some sort of a loss. Maybe you've lost a relationship. Maybe you've lost a loved one. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe you've lost a financial circumstance. It could be anything, a friendship, anything. Okay. When we don't deal with our healing, it's as though we have put something heavy in that bag, heavy in that sack, and we are carrying it into our new life. No matter what type of loss you've experienced, your life will be different. There is no way to unring that bell. There's no way to go back to how things were before because you are no longer the same person. Every time something like this happens, we have an opportunity to grow, to learn, to become the alchemist who turns something into something beautiful that really wasn't so beautiful. Maybe you've got a message, maybe you've got a book, maybe you've got a lesson that you can teach to people somehow. Maybe you can become a preacher. Maybe you can become a speaker. Maybe you could become an artist. When we take the painful circumstance, we allow the healing to take place and we start to turn it into something absolutely amazing. Then you become an alchemist, okay? And that is truly when you know you've healed. It's truly when you know you've healed because that circumstance, maybe the people that are attached to it don't have the same power that they used to have. So now it becomes a circumstance and part of my history as opposed to the thing that defines me. Okay. If I'm a widow whose, spouse died 20 years ago, what do I have to bring to the world as long as I live in that space? As long as I define myself by that language, will I ever meet somebody again in my life? Probably not. Will my kids think that I'm happy? Will they be peaceful because I'm happy and I'm moving forward and I'm making a good life for myself? Probably not. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very important for us to release those things, those labels, those ways that we define ourselves and free ourselves from the pain of the past. So that's what I've got for you. If you're still being triggered, your healing isn't complete. So I would encourage you to find us on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Find us on Facebook. Find this. We're all over the place. YouTube, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Binge TV. We're all over the place. So find the replay of this podcast. Go back with your pen and paper. Find that third segment with the steps and go through them again. And if you really need help, call me. Send me an email. Find someone who can help you with this process, okay? You deserve to have a happy life. You deserve to have that thing that you can see. You just maybe need a little bit of help to get there, and that is okay. So what I've got for you is a quote to leave you with. Healing is a process, and we can either embrace it or resist it. If we resist, we will continue to be triggered and experience the emotional upheaval of whatever happened. But if we embrace it and do the work to get down to the root and dig it up, we will be free from those triggers and emotional upheaval. It's up to you. You always have a choice. What do you choose? So thank you for being with me today. I know this is one of our heavier shows. Thanks so much for your time, for your attention. We will be back next week on Friday, always Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 Mountain, and I think it's 10 Pacific. We are here live every week. And if you are doing some sort of process or work where you are working on shifting your mindset, this is a great place to be because every single week we talk about something that relates to our subliminal soundtrack and how to shift that mindset so that we can actually move forward into whatever we want to create for ourselves in our lives. So next week's show is just before Valentine's Day. So we are actually doing self-love, be your own Valentine. Now, I'm not saying this is just for single people. This is for anybody because there is one relationship in your life that is very important that we often don't acknowledge or do the work for. So whether you are coupled or single or whatever it may be, it is very important for us to develop a really strong, healthy relationship with ourselves. And that's what we're going to be talking about next week. Next week is your most important relationship, your relationship with yourself, how to learn to love yourself exactly as you are right now. So that you build that solid foundation that helps you to love others from a place of of wholeness and healthy and fulfilled. So join me next week. Thanks again so much for being with us on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. Again, I am Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can find me on Facebook. You can go to jackiemott.com. Thanks so much. And remember, it is your time to rise and thrive. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us for Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. Jackie Mott will return next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Have a fantastic week, and remember, it's your time to rise and thrive.